I want to get your reaction first to the former vice president and what he said at the Gridiron dinner. He didn't say this publicly. He said it at a private dinner, but nonetheless, finally kind of condemning, right, his former boss. All of this happening while you got House GOP members wanting to investigate the investigators in the January 6th committee.
It's about time. I just wish it didn't take 2 years for the former vice president to honestly talk about what we all witnessed and what the American people watched in real time. It doesn't matter how, much Tucker Carlson and McCarthy try to erase and rewrite history. It is widely documented, and it's documented in the memories of the people who have lived through it and who witnessed it in real time. I don't know what they think they will get out of investigating the investigators, but the Republican Party really is in shambles, right? Like, they're not really interested in truth. They're not interested in having integrity or principles. For them, it's about finding an enemy. It's about inciting hatred and anger, and it's about, causing as much chaos as they can because they don't know how to govern.
Let's talk about a couple of different things, Congresswoman, while I have you. I do want to talk first about the debt ceiling. Some of the demands, it seems, that are coming from the House Freedom Caucus. It seems like they're the ones that are calling the shots when it comes to Republicans negotiating on the debt ceiling. We know they're playing with fire here. There's actually a headline from the AP saying, will it take a market crash for Congress to raise the debt limit? And my question is, will it?
I think so. They are very dangerous. And, you can see that through these demands. McCarthy had to win the speakership. It took 7 rounds of votes, and he had to make a deal with the devil. And unfortunately, the American people and the world economy will end up suffering from it. If we do not raise the debt ceiling and have a clean bill to raise the debt ceiling, that has an impact not just on our economy, but the global economy. This is our debt. These are bills that we have outstanding that we have to pay. None of it should be up for negotiation, and to have the so-called Freedom Caucus holding our country's economy and the global economy hostage is really dangerous. And, I do hope that McCarthy ends up finding a spine and working with the Democrats to get this done.
You were one of, and continue to be, one of the Republican majority's original targets. You were booted from the House Foreign Affairs Committee. You had, though, an incredibly powerful response to that. I want to play that moment for people, and then we'll talk.
I am an American who was sent here by her constituents to represent them in Congress, a refugee who survived the horrors of a civil war, someone who spent her childhood in a refugee camp, someone who knows what it means to have a shot at a better life here in the United States.
When you see the plans of the Republican majority right now and where they have put their resources in their time and where they plan to over the next 2 years of this session, what goes through your head?
I'm mortified and really scared for the direction of our country as we look at the plans that the Republican majority has put forth. We've also seen it with Republican leaders in Florida and Texas and Virginia. When they say they want to go after woke agenda, it's essentially means that they want to be outwardly xenophobic. They want to be outwardly homophobic. They are against any sort of progress that we are making in creating a more inclusive, open and welcoming society. They are not offering a single policy solution in addressing the climate crisis that we are dealing with, not only in the United States, but globally. They're not addressing the pervasive hunger problem that exists in our country, homelessness. Many of the problems that our constituents are concerned with, securing and defending Social Security, Medicare, funding our public schools, trying to make sure our kids are actually getting the adequate education that they need in order not to just compete here in the United States, but globally, addressing the immigration crisis, the broken system we currently have. All they want to do is chin up hate for their base, and they're only interested in having power for the sake of having power. I look at McCarthy and think, this is somebody who doesn't ever have a single policy discussion. He wanted to be a speaker so that he can just have that title. And it's really disappointing because when you look at Democrats, you look at, the administration, President Biden, you look at Leader Jeffries, you look at those of us in the Progressive Caucus, we are constantly having conversations about actual policy that would create progress for the American people. And then you look at the Republicans and all you hear, it's about division and hatred and bigotry, and it's really sad.
So how do you, Congresswoman, now continue this fight, right? You put this tweet out that really stood out to me, and I want to read it for folks. 28 years ago, I arrived in America as a young refugee. I would never in my wildest dreams have imagined that I would have the opportunity to represent the community that welcomed me with open arms in Congress and to fight for little girls like me dreaming of a safer future. How do you continue your fight, right, what you want to see happen in a Republican House?
Yeah, I mean, I'm constantly reminded, especially on March 8th, which is my America Day, that it is because of the generosity of the American people that I've had the opportunities that I've had. I always talk about how our state is cold, but the people have warm hearts. And Minnesota is home to Wellstone, Mondaire, and, so many people who deeply care about using politics to change people's lives. And we're in Congress fighting to make sure all of our children's bellies are fed before we try to feed their brains, trying to make sure everybody has a home and a roof over their heads, that, we're doing everything that we can to fight the climate crisis and continue to uphold the American value that says, we welcome those who are running from oppression and struggling around the world. This is my mandate, and this is what I will continue to push forth.
So despite your removal from the House Foreign Affairs Committee, you are still very much having an impact. And as you talk about policy, of course, saying that Kevin McCarthy is not talking policy, let's talk a little bit about policy while I still have a couple minutes with you. I know that you introduced the Stop Arming Human Rights Abusers Act, which, quote, imposes universal human rights and humanitarian conditions on security cooperation with the U.S. The bill establishes red lines based on internationally recognized gross violations of international human rights and international humanitarian law as well. Talk to me about this bill.
This is, I think, a simple step that we can take as a country. We espouse the values of upholding human rights, but we are okay in selling millions of dollars in weapons to countries like Saudi Arabia and Egypt that, are jailing dissidents. We have seen our weapons be used in Yemen and other places to cause catastrophe. We continue to have a policy that says, that we're going to have conditions in our defense support for countries like Israel. And so it's really important for us to make sure that our values are embedded in the policies that we have in this country, because if we continue to deviate from that, the hypocrisy becomes glaring and we continue to lose, our standing in the world.
Congressman, I want to talk Iran as well. Their top diplomat saying today that a prisoner swap was near. State Department spokesperson Ned Price essentially saying that was a quote-unquote cruel lie. Either way, you have been and commented on, we've all been watching, the world has been watching the continued protests in Iran, the sacrifices women, children, young girls are making every single day in Iran, fighting for freedom, fighting for their rights. How should the United States, how should the Biden administration be dealing with Iran right now?
I mean, it's horrific what's happening in Iran. Obviously, we have to congratulate women and girls and others who are standing in solidarity with them for their courageous behavior as they stand against this authoritarian regime. I think it's really important for the United States to continue to pressure Iran to do the right thing. Women should be allowed to lead their lives as equally as they can, regardless of what country they are living in, regardless of what regime they are living under. And I think it is indicative of us, an imperative for us to continue to stand in solidarity with those that are seeking freedom and liberty.